Okay, this video is on translating words into symbols. Broken down, we're going to, on this video, translate word phrases into variable expressions. So I'm calling this video part 1. The next video I do will be on equations. This is just translating expressions, meaning there's usually no equal signs or inequality. Okay, so if we go to the next slide, here are some of the examples you will have. Now, remember where this video is, because if you're running into word problems that you don't know how to translate, you can always come back to this video and kind of get a look-see. All right, so basically, the two, I think that bother the students the most, so that the students miss the most, are these two right here. So let's just talk about what that means. That means we want 7 more than x. That means we're going to write x down first and then write 7 more than that. So that's 7 more than x. Now, of course, some of you already know that it doesn't matter in this case if we put the 7 first, because you'll get the same result. But technically, you should write it like x plus 7. Now, 7 less than x does make a difference how you write it. So we're going to write x first minus 7. And then this doesn't work. You can't write negative 7 plus x. Subtraction isn't commutative. So you can't do this. And that's why on these kind, the first two here, write the x first and then write plus 7 or minus 7. Okay, x less than 7 will be the same as what? It's the same as this one. So what are we going to write first? We're going to write 7, and then we're going to do x is less than that, so we subtract x less than 7. And notice on this we don't have the is word in there. We're going to talk about that at the end of the video. The rest are pretty easy. You just read it the way you, write it the way you see it, x minus 7. So that's going to be x minus 7. The sum of, sum means plus. So that's going to be, so you just write it the way you read it, 7 plus x. The difference means minus, so that's going to be 7 minus x. Product means times, so that's going to be 7 times x, and I'm just going to write 7x, which just really means 7 times x. Now you know why we don't want to do that. Doesn't that look funny? We don't want to do that. This is just 7 and times x. The quotient means divide, so that just is 7 divided by x. So practice around with these, and it's pretty simple. Just be careful with these first two. All right, and here's a little more complicated ones we're going to go through. When you see the word quantity in math, that means you need to put it in parentheses. So when it's saying 7 times the quantity x decreased by 3, this is, the quantity is x decreased by 2. So it's 7 times, I'll just put a dot for times, the quantity, that means you put parentheses, x decreased by 2. All right? Now, look at the difference between these two, the wording. This is 7 times the difference. The difference of, you see the word of, that means these two go together. So that's going to be 7 times the difference, which is x minus 2 that you learned from the other previous videos. These are the same. So this is just two different ways of saying the same thing. 7 times the sum of means basically we're going to put these two together. Sum means plus, addition, so that's 7 times the sum. So the sum is x and means plus, 2. 2 increased by the product. So we're increasing 2, we're going to increase it by the product of, means these two go together, 7 and x. The product is 7 and x, so that means times, so 7x, or 7 times x. To decrease, so I'm writing the same thing, decrease means minus 7 times x. Okay, so those are a little more complicated. Let's go to the next video. The difference between. So we have the difference here between. So that this part here goes together. The difference between. So that's going to be 7 times x minus 2. 7 times x minus 2. Okay, half the difference between. So we're going to do the same thing. We have this word between, these two together. The difference is x and 2, so x minus 2. You already know how to do this part. Now we just take half of that and put the 1/2 in front. Twice the sum of. So here's the sum. So we're going to put those together, x plus 2, and do twice that. Okay, and let's look at the difference between those two. Twice x would be this, and we're going to increase it by 7. Okay? All right. Here is some things you need to know. If you're talking about 3 consecutive integers, and n is an integer, we're always going to start out with n. So if I put n, my next integer would be n plus 1, and my next integer would be n plus 2. So let's just pick for an example here, and I'm going to do that over here on the side. I'm going to let n be 3. So if I plug in n for this first one here, I get 3. I plug in 3 here, I get 3 plus 1 is 4. Plug in 3 here, and you get 5. So we have 3, 4, 5. Okay? So, but that's how we're just translating now. All right. 3 consecutive even integers, and n is an integer. So we're going to talk about even integers, and n starts out to be an even integer. We're going to start, n is our first even integer, which would be 2, 4, 6, 8, like that. So the next integer would be 2 more than that, so that's n plus 2. The next one would be 2 more than that, would be n plus 4. Again, if you plug in an even integer, so let's let n be, say, 6. So if this is 6, then the next one, if I add 2 to that, I get 8. And if I add 4 to 6, I get 10. So they're consecutive even integers, 6, 8, and 10. 3 consecutive odd integers is the same thing, but you start out with, it's just the same. So it's n plus 2, n plus 4, and that's because we're doing 3 here. So if my odd integer is, say, 5, I start with 5, add 2 to it, I get 7. If I add 4 to 5, I get 9. So you have 5, 7, and 9. Okay, so if I have 3 consecutive positive multiples of 7, my first integer is going to be n, and I have to say start with 7. The next one would be n plus 7. The next one would be n plus 14. What would the next one be if we did 4? N plus 21, right? So let's say we start with 7. Add 7 to that, you get 14. Add 14 to 7, and you get 21. So it's 3 consecutive positive multiples of 7. Okay, the last one's going to lead us into part 2 of the video. Again, we've already talked about this, and I said this is sometimes what confuses the students, and I want you all to see the difference between these two. All right, it says 7 less than x, so I told you to write this first, and then we're going to do 7 less than that. All right, 7 more than x, you start with x, and you add the 7, sorry. Okay, let's see what the difference between these are. X is less than 7. Well, you see this word here? That means we have an equation or an equality, meaning we're using equals, less than and equal to, greater than and equal to, or plainly just less than and greater than. In this case, we're just using those two. So it says x is less than 7. This second one says x is greater than 7. What is the difference between this side and this side? It's the word is. So keep that in mind. The next video we're going to do translating that does involve this word is. And usually in English, English teachers refer to these as the to be verbs. And that is all.